Greetings. Welcome back to the channel Humanity, Facts and Mysteries. When we think of ancient states, we often imagine power maintained through armies, punishment, and constant coercion, walls, soldiers, executions, and fear. Ancient China certainly possessed all of these elements, yet for much of its history, social order was sustained by something far less visible and far more effective, a system that relied not primarily on force, but on behavior, ritual, and internalized expectation. Long before China became a unified empire, its societies faced a fundamental problem. How do you maintain order across large populations without permanent violence? Endless force is expensive, unstable, and breeds rebellion. Early Chinese thinkers understood this deeply. They did not search for a perfect ruler or an unbreakable law. They searched for a system that would make obedience feel natural rather than imposed. This search produced one of the most distinctive social mechanisms in human history. At the center of this system was the idea that society functions when everyone knows their role and performs it correctly, not out of fear of punishment, but out of obligation to harmony. Relationships mattered more than individuals. Behavior mattered more than intention. A person was not judged by what they believed, but by how they acted within the structure of family, community, and ritual. This is why early Chinese society placed extraordinary emphasis on ritual. Ritual was not religion in the modern sense. It was a technology of behavior. Daily actions, greetings, ceremonies, mourning practices, and hierarchical interactions were all regulated. By repeating correct behavior constantly, people internalized order. Authority no longer needed to intervene frequently because individuals corrected themselves. Shame replaced fear. Disharmony became socially painful. The family was the primary unit of control. Loyalty flowed upward. Children to parents, younger to elder, subject to ruler. This structure mirrored itself at every level of society. The state did not need to watch everyone because families watched themselves. Education reinforced this system. Learning was not about creativity or self-expression. It was about moral alignment. Texts were memorized not to inspire debate, but to shape character. The ideal individual was not one who challenged authority, but one who embodied proper conduct so completely that authority became almost invisible. This is why early Chinese governance often appears less brutal than that of other ancient civilizations. Despite its size, punishment existed, but it was not the primary tool. The real power lay in consensus around norms. When people agreed on what correct behavior looked like, deviations stood out immediately. Social pressure did the work of enforcement. This system was particularly effective during times of fragmentation. When dynasties collapsed and central authority weakened, social order often remained intact at the local level. Villages continued to function. Families maintained hierarchy. Ritual life persisted. Chaos was feared above all else, not because it threatened rulers, but because it threatened harmony itself. This fear shaped political philosophy. A ruler was not legitimate because of strength alone, but because he maintained balance. When disorder spread, it was interpreted as moral failure rather than logistical collapse. This belief reduced the need for constant rebellion. If a ruler failed, the solution was replacement, not rejection of the system. What makes this system difficult to recognize today is its subtlety. It did not announce itself through monuments or laws carved in stone. It operated through habit, repetition, and expectation. It shaped people long before they encountered authority. By the time force was needed, most control had already been achieved without it. What made the ancient Chinese system so enduring was not perfection, but flexibility within strict form. While roles and rituals were clearly defined, interpretation was constantly adjusted to circumstance. This allowed society to absorb change without breaking structure. When laws became too harsh, moral philosophy softened enforcement. When moral expectations failed, legal systems intervened. This balance between internal regulation and external control created a self-correcting mechanism that reduced the need for constant force. Over time, different schools of thought debated how this balance should be maintained. Some emphasized morality and example, others emphasized law and punishment. Yet even the most legalist systems assumed that order ultimately depended on predictability and shared norms rather than fear alone. A state ruled purely by terror collapses the moment enforcement weakens. Ancient Chinese thinkers understood that fear expires, but habit endures. This insight shaped governance for centuries. Bureaucracy became a key instrument of control. Officials were selected not only for loyalty, but for their ability to perform ritualized roles correctly. Administration itself became ceremonial. Reports followed strict formats. Communication adhered to hierarchy. Even rebellion often imitated official language, revealing how deeply the system shaped thought. Perhaps the most revealing aspect of this system is how it handled collapse. When dynasties fell, society did not abandon its underlying structure. The idea of order remained, even when rulers failed. This continuity made reconstruction possible. New regimes did not need to invent legitimacy from scratch. They positioned themselves as restorers of harmony rather than creators of something new. This pattern repeated across Chinese history. Collapse was followed by reformation, not reinvention. From the outside, this can appear static or oppressive. From the inside, it functioned as stability in a world of constant uncertainty. It limited extremes, it reduced chaos, it allowed large populations to coexist without permanent warfare. The force was always present in the background, but it was rarely the first tool. The system worked because most people believed in it, not because they were constantly threatened by it. This belief did not require blind faith. It was reinforced daily through behavior that made social life predictable. Over time, predictability became safety, safety became legitimacy, and legitimacy reduced the need for force even further. Understanding this challenges modern assumptions about power. It suggests that the most effective systems of control are not always the loudest or the most violent. Sometimes they are the ones people stop noticing. Ancient China did not eliminate force, it made it secondary. That distinction explains how such a vast and complex society could endure for thousands of years without relying solely on constant repression. Which modern systems do you think function less through force and more through internalized behavior? Write your thoughts in the comments. Stay with humanity, facts and mysteries. Because the strongest forms of control are often the ones that feel like order rather than power.